Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to take an opportunity today to talk about a story that is not necessarily unknown, but it's not necessarily like super known, I guess. Either way, it is something that has fascinated me since I was young, and I wanted to just delve into it. And that is the mysterious disappearance of the Roanoke Colony. So some of you may be familiar with this from middle school history class. Maybe you have seen it mentioned on an episode of Supernatural. Maybe you became interested in it when you saw the season of American Horror Story that was loosely kind of based around it. Or maybe you've never heard of this. Regardless of where you fall in there, hopefully you still find this video interesting. I actually found some new updates and some new theories that I hadn't heard of. So fingers crossed, there's still something in here for you. So the Roanoke Colony was the first colony in what is now North Carolina, and this was all the way back in 1585. It was founded by Walter Raleigh. So when they first came here, it wasn't great. In fact, the first round of colonists were starving, they were super ill prepared, and all in all, it just wasn't a success. So that group decided, we're gonna hop back on this ship, and it was captained by Francis Drake, just in case you like names, and they peaced out. They went back to England. They were like, there's really nothing for us here. So the next year, Walter Raleigh decided he's gonna try again. So this time he sent 100 colonists under John White, and this name will come back up, and things were moderately better. However, they still hadn't planned ahead enough, and so once again, they needed more supplies, they needed more food, they needed really more basic commodities. So White decided, you guys stay here, I'm gonna hop on the ship, let me pop over real quick to England, and I'll get everything we need, I'll bring it back. Keep in mind that this is not like an overnight sort of be right back event. This trip to get more supplies took 3 years. So this is sort of like theory one. That's a long time. And it's fine if that's kind of automatically where you go of like, okay, he was gone for 3 years. I can already see where this story is going. But wait, just wait. So he comes back 3 years later, and he finds that the settlement is completely empty. Like I said, some of you may automatically be thinking, of course it is. He was gone for 3 years. What were they gonna do? Sit there being like, gosh, I sure am hungry. So yes, that in and of itself, kind of a problem. But even though it doesn't sound that strange, what was really bizarre to White was the fact that there was no trace of anyone. So think, even if it has been 3 years, it's reasonable to think that there's going to be evidence that someone was there, that there were at some point 100 people there. Even if they left, even if they went somewhere else, people tend to litter, right? So like maybe they left some stuff behind. Maybe someone actually died before they moved, and here's some like haphazard graves. But there was nothing. It was like they had just poof, vanished. So that was unsettling. So he's walking around this totally barren settlement, and I see back and forth. Some things say it's a fence post, some things say that it's a tree, some say palisade. Either way, there was a carving in something carvable that had the word Croatoan. So when he sees this, his first thought is, good news! I know what they're talking about. There's a Croatoan island about 50 miles that way. I can go, I can find them, that's gotta be where they are. So he headed there, expecting to find his people. But instead, there was no one there either, not a single person. And these weren't just like your run-of-the-mill, I'll volunteer to go to this strange place. There were some important people here in the settlement that were now missing. In fact, the very first English child born in the New America was missing, and John's daughter and his granddaughter. So he also had kind of a vested interest, not only not wanting to be like a failure, but his family was missing. Despite searching, despite finding, clues here and there, the answer to where they went would remain a mystery for hundreds of years. So let's talk about theories, because that really is where the story itself ends. Because of the carving, some people think that it was actually a really quick warning to tell people the Croatoan native tribe came here, they slaughtered us, I had time to quickly etch this into something before I was also killed. And that's fair enough. However, again, the problem that people find with this theory is, but wouldn't there have been evidence of some massive massacre? And I, again, understand that it's still been 3 years. Let's say this attack happened the day after John left. That's a whole lot of time for just natural occurring weather and different circumstances to get rid of any remains or proof or evidence of something like that happening. That's fair. We can put that out there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist enough to think like, absolutely not, that makes no sense. Sure, it does. It does. But not a ton. So others believe that the drought conditions are actually what drove them away, and probably they just sort of left on their own accord trying to save themselves, and then just sort of wound up dispersed in different places. Again, yes, if these circumstances are intolerable, of course they're going to try to leave and go somewhere else. But wouldn't there have been some evidence of where they went? And because there wasn't, a lot of people find holes in that theory, because wouldn't we know? So then there's a theory that maybe they were just absorbed into a native tribe. Whether it was the Croatoans, whether it was someone else, maybe they were just sort of adopted into this group, and there you go. People have definitely come forward and said, yeah, actually my great, 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 etc. grandmother said that, she was a part of that settlement and whatever. So we definitely have some claims there, but of course it's really hard to track those down, verify them, or debunk them. Then we have a theory that if we go back to that drought and the intolerable circumstances, maybe instead of them trying to go to nearby places, maybe they were like, we got to get back to England where we know how things work. And so perhaps they got on a boat and then they were lost at sea, or killed by the Spaniards coming from Florida, making their way up north to try to find these other settlements that the English people were trying to take over. So again, logical, hard to debunk, hard to prove. So definitely a floating theory. The problem with all of those theories is that for people like me who love to find the paranormal element of these disappearances, my big issue is that no matter what theory you're looking at, there is no proof of any of them, right? I can't prove that they were absorbed into a colony. I can't prove that they were lost at sea. I can't prove that they were slaughtered. I got nothing. So to me, I'm still over here going, isn't that strange that one day they were here and now they're gone? So we're going to get into those theories in just a second. But as a more recent update, in February of 2020, very recent, History.com published some updates. So archaeologists have found some new clues. And I am reading so I don't get this wrong, but 2 independent teams found archaeological remains suggesting that at least some of the Roanoke colonists may have split into 2 groups, each of them joining a different Native American community. So one team is looking into a site near Cape Creek on Hatteras Island, which is like 50 miles southeast of the Roanoke Colony, while the other is based on the mainland about 50 miles northwest of Roanoke. So, boop, they just went this way. Meanwhile, in 1998, Cape Creek near Pamlico Sound, which is the site of a major Croatoan town center and trading hub, was the site of a dig. Now, archaeologists there came from East Carolina University, and they found some jewelry that dated back to the time where these settlers would have been, so 16th century. And then more recently, in the late 2000s, another dig found a sword that these English peoples would have had with them. There was also a slate, and they had found a similar slate at Jamestown with a tiny M in the corner, and we'll actually touch on that in a bit. But this has a lot of people thinking that the colonists did, in fact, assimilate to different tribes and just kept their items with them. And while these newly discovered things definitely lend themselves to that theory, it still doesn't solve the mystery. So we're all still sitting here going, yeah, that makes sense. And that's like all we get. So they could have vanished still creepily and suspiciously, and their items could have been stolen. You know, someone, if I was some person of a native tribe or otherwise, and I found a deserted settlement and there were like some cool swords and some like tablets and stuff, yes, I would take them with me. Yes. So I don't know that that really gives us the answer that the people were there. It just kind of shows us that their stuff was there. So again, at this point, some of you may be like, this isn't a history channel. Like, why are we talking so much about this historical moment? And that's because now we're going to jump into the paranormal theories, the spooky theories, because a few of them I knew, and then a couple I actually hadn't heard before, so hopefully these will be interesting to you. But the first is that the word itself, Croatoan, is actually a curse. So the word Croatoan was found in this carvable, whatever it was, on the site, right? And of course, its presence at the site is like the most well-known piece of this mystery. But the word Croatoan is also linked to some other bizarre disappearances, and this I did not know about, and I looked it up because I was like, I don't think this is true. And I actually found other sources supporting it, so it seems that this is real and I had never heard of it. But the word Croatoan was actually mentioned by Edgar Allan Poe himself. He had disappeared for a while before he died, and there are some mysterious circumstances surrounding his death. If you'd be interested in a Poe video, let me know. If you're not, there are some great podcasts out there about it. But either way, before his death, he had disappeared for a little while, and when he was seen again, he was supposedly delirious. And in his final state of delirium, just before he died, one of the last words that he said was Croatoan. Doo-doo-doo-doo. I mean, like that's interesting. His official cause of death is unknown, and his medical records and death certificate were lost. Cool. So we'll never know what happened to him for sure, but again, there are a lot of theories that he was beaten, that he just died, all sorts of things. But regardless, that mentioning of that word, especially after he had disappeared for a bit, very interesting. The word also appeared at several other famous disappearances. The stagecoach robber Black Bart had carved the word into the wall of his cell before he was released from prison, and that was in 1888. So yeah, granted, maybe he was just like, I know about this, I'm gonna write this word down because it's in my head and it's kind of a cool word. But after he was released from prison, he was never heard from again. No one ever saw him. He vanished. So he wrote this word, disappeared. And this one really blew me away, and I was like, time out, this can't be real. Apparently it is. The word was actually found in none other than Amelia Earhart's journal. What? So after she disappeared in 1937, of course they have found some of her belongings. We just don't know where she went. But her journal was found, and that word was written in the border of one of the pages. So, and then lastly, the last bed that horror writer Ambrose Bierce slept in before he disappeared in Mexico in 1913 had the word Croatoan carved into one of the posts. So it was a 4-poster bed, and it was in one of the posts. In 1921, Croatoan was written on the last page of the logbook of the ship Carroll A. Deering when it crashed on Cape Hatteras near Croatoan Island. The ship was missing its entire crew. That's weird. That's super weird. And like I said, I did some research because these things blew me away, and I was like, that's probably not true. And I was able to find reputable sources that did in fact say it happened. And another source I found on Course Heroes website says that another mystical supernatural theory is that the spirit of Croatoan Island is responsible for this disappearance. And the Croatoan belief system includes this spirit on the island that has the power to absorb humans basically into the wind, right? Like into the actual landscape. So maybe they never left. They just, I'm trying to picture what that would look like, and it's very Scooby-Doo in my mind, like where they just sort of like melt into the island. I don't know. But according to this belief, if the spirit was angered, it would transform people into trees, into animals, into stones, or any other part of the land. And if the colonists were exploiting resources or abusing the land in some way, maybe it angered the spirit, and the spirit came and was like, boom, now you're a tree. I don't know. Welcome in, Radley. We've missed you. Another theory is that cannibalism or disease actually are the reason that these colonists disappeared. Cannibalism honestly makes plenty of sense to me, because if you think about the Donner Party, for instance, I mean, that's a perfect example of the desperate lengths that humans can go to if they don't have the resources that they need. In the Donner Party's case, it's a little bit different, but not tremendously so, because it was the same idea where they had this plan, they thought they were prepared, turns out they weren't, and then things got really bad really fast, and desperate times. So cannibalism to me definitely seems possible, especially considering the whole reason that John had left was because he knew they didn't have enough to survive. So again, the only hole that I find in that is that I still would expect some trace of something, or more than just one word carved into a tree. I would think there would be some, I don't know, last minute confession somewhere carved into a tree, you know, asking people to like pray for them. I don't know. But then there's another theory that I had not heard of before, which is witchcraft. There are two ideas surrounding this theory. The first is that the Croatoan executed the colonists because they believed that they were witches. The other is that the colonists were actually murdered by witches living in the woods of North Carolina. Both of these are really interesting to me, especially because the Croatoan people did in fact believe in witchcraft. They believed in black magic, but there's little evidence to suggest that they were actively seeking them out and then executing them. I don't know that that one holds a lot of water, but it is interesting nonetheless. And then there's also a suggestion that the settlers were victims of wendigos. Now, a lot of times when we are talking about Native American beliefs and folklore, wendigos come up, skinwalkers come up, and in this case, people believed that Maybe that's what happened to them. As if that wasn't enough, we also get a really fun reptilian devil. So the Croatoan people, and honestly, I just want to learn more about the Croatoan people because I'm a big fan of all their beliefs. But the Croatoan people believe in a reptilian devil of the woods, and it's this evil spirit that could attach itself to people. It made people violent, it made them greedy, it made them paranoid. The idea here being that the spirit possessed the settlers once they started turning on each other and their wait for supplies just became too long. Maybe so. Maybe it's kind of a mix of all these. If you really want to entertain some supernatural ideas, perhaps they were turning on each other, they were turning to cannibalism, and then maybe this spirit did come and was like, this person's probably going to try to eat you next, and now that you're all paranoid, we should probably kill them. Maybe. Why not? But the last theory I'll mention that is coming a little bit back into reality now is that of the Dare stones, D-A-R-E, and supposedly written by Eleanor White Dare, so that would be John White's daughter. There were a series of stones discovered in what is now Georgia, so just crossing over the North Carolina settlement into a part of Georgia that wasn't too far away. Historians are really on the fence about the authenticity of these stones. Some believe that they're a total hoax, and then others believe that only the first one that was found is real. I will put a picture on the screen of the first one, and I'll leave it here while I tell you about it. So in 1937, a tourist found this stone with some carved writing on it and brought it to Emory University. So Dr. Haywood Pierce, who was a professor of American history there at the college, said, I don't want to confirm or deny that it's authentic or not authentic, but I can tell you what it says, and I can tell you that kind of makes sense. So what it says is, Ananias Dare in Virginia went hence unto heaven, 1591, Anya Englishman Shoe, John White Governor via. And the other side of the stone explained that only 7 colonists of the original 100 were still alive, and the rest had been murdered by Native Americans. In 1940, 47 more stones were found dating up to nearly 1600. One explains that the survivors are safe and living with a tribe in the Nacoochee Valley in Georgia. And one says Eleanor Dare had married the local chief. Yet another states that she had given birth to the chief's daughter and the tribe was not excited about it. And another states that she died and had a daughter named Agnes, that would have been the chief's daughter, that survived her. Okay, so to further complicate this, one, who took over the rock writing? Because if she really did write the first one, that's fine. Let's say that's totally valid, she did that. Cool, I'm with you there. But how did someone know that she was doing that? And also, when she did die, who was like, oh my gosh, let me find a stone, let me write this down because this is how she kept her records. That, to me, I don't understand. And two, why write on rocks? These people had instruments. I mean, even if you're writing on like a tablet, if you're like a stone tablet, if you're writing on a piece of paper, if you're carving into trees, but like who's like, this is a beautiful river stone, let me make some notes on it. I think that's so strange. Am I missing something of historical prevalence there? Please fill me in if rock writing was like a thing. Maybe it was like the bullet journal of the 15th century. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, people are on the fence as to whether any of them are real. At first, Harvard University said, yep, they're all real. In 2015, the History Channel did a documentary that said that now the decision is that the first one, was real, that one that we showed, but then the rest were total hoaxes and actually had been created with a drill. So fine, but then I'm also like, why fake rock writing, right? I mean, like, yeah, I think it's weird that she did it to begin with, but if the rest were hoaxes, who was like, I heard about that rock that a handful of people are interested in, let me get out my drill and make some notes? Do you see what I mean? Like, to me, I'm just frustrated with it because it doesn't really make sense one way or another. But anyway, now that Radley has come to sit on me, that's that on that. So those are all the theories, at least all the major theories. I mean, that was a lot, but there are definitely more. But I'm so torn because, of course, I love a spooky disappearance. I love the idea that they just vanished into thin air or perhaps vanished into trees. But I also understand that 3 years is a long time for something to happen, and it's not exactly that dramatic of a disappearance. So I don't know. I think they're all really fascinating, but at the end of the day, I would love to hear what you think. And even if it is a super mundane explanation, you know, maybe they were killed, maybe tragedy befell them, I still think it's a really interesting chapter in US history because it is still kind of strange. It's still a little weird. So I would love to know your thoughts. And again, if you would like to see something specific from me in the future, just drop me a comment and let me know. If you want me to do a video on Poe's mysterious death, I would love to cover it, so just let me know. But that's it, and otherwise I'm going to give my dog some attention because she seems to be hurting for it. And that's that. So I will see you next time. Bye, guys.